with a little health and a little wealth and a lot of love.
All right, so what are endocrine disrupting chemicals, or EDCs?
So endocrine disrupting chemicals are basically substances that can impact our hormones. And so...
Why would that matter?
So, I mean, as many of us know, our hormones are involved in many different biochemical reactions or bodily processes.
Which we talked about last time.
Yeah.
I'm still on Aunt Gretchen. Gretel, Hansel and Grelin, there it is, which is your hunger hormone in your stomach, which we talked about last time.
So, I mean, your hormones are involved in basically in signaling, so enacting different reactions between different organ systems. And so, we talked a lot about like thyroid hormone and estrogen and androgens. And then you have, insulin and other hormones that can cause a lot of downstream effects and a lot of chronic conditions and symptoms for people. And so if you're exposed to certain environmental toxins and those are impacting the way that these hormones are reacting, then that can certainly impact the way you feel and can impact, chronic conditions.
So endocrine disrupting chemicals are just chemicals that you use in your everyday. So maybe give us some examples of what chemicals maybe to look out for.
Yeah, so the biggest ones are, what we consider as the typical pollutants in our environment. So burning of fossil fuels or, byproducts of just industrial processes. Those are things that people kind of typically consider when we think about pollution, but there are other things.
What impact does that have on your body?
So it's, there have been plenty of studies that show that these specific chemicals will stay, traces of them can be found in human bodies for years and years, even after the initial exposure. And so it's not something where you're just, temporarily exposed to something and then your body gets rid of it, automatically or immediately, and it's no longer a problem, but it's something that can have long-lasting effects.
Like what?
So it can impact, and it might not necessarily impact the level of your hormone, so it might not impact the level of your thyroid hormone or the level of your estrogen or progesterone or your androgens, but it can impact sometimes the way that they actually can produce their end effect. So it's more like at the receptor level or at the cellular level. So that hormone is not able to do what it's supposed to do and not able to send the message that it's supposed to send.
So you said estrogen, which I think we all know what that is, but you said androgen?
So like testosterone, more
okay.
of the male, considered to be the male hormones.
Right. And we learned last time in an episode about overall hormones, like what are they, how they work. So just to repeat this, to play this back to you, and if this is the first time you're listening to us, I think it's important. And by the way, I have to say, we're big fans of Human Lab. We're big fans of Dr. Hyman and these very technical podcasts. Like what we're trying to do is do something a little bit different where the everyday person can understand exactly what we're saying. We believe knowledge is power, so this information should help you make better decisions of your health. Yes, there's some terms here. We're not doing this to impress you, but these terms are very specific for a very specific reason. And so based upon my understanding from last time, hormones, they carry a certain message to enact a certain behavior from your body at the cellular level. Did I do that right?
Mm-hmm.
No way. Okay, so let's look at an example like testosterone. Testosterone comes from your testes,
mm-hmm.
and it produces that. It carries a certain message to this. I don't
know. So, I mean, spermatogenesis. So the process of making sperm.
But it doesn't make you muscular.
I mean, it definitely helps with lean muscle mass.
How?
Excuse me, or with estrogen and progesterone in females, which, and also males have estrogen and progesterone. So, the formation of the follicle that supports your egg and ovulation. I mean, those processes. I mean, insulin is a hormone that impacts your glucose levels. So, definitely impacts the amount of blood sugar that you have running in your blood at all times, but also how your cells are able to bring that sugar in and utilize that and make energy from it.
Got it. Interesting. Okay. So you talk about EDCs. They particularly can disrupt your whole makeup and be found in your body years and years and years after exposure. So maybe you can give us some examples of these EDCs more specifically.
So you have, I'd mentioned more of the pollutants. So dioxins are an example.
What is a dioxin?
So it's something that we consider they're highly toxic to us, but it's made in, like I mentioned, industrial processes.
So tell us about the specific classes of endocrine disrupting chemicals and where do they come from?
So there's several different classes that we can kind of...
We don't want to touch on all of them, just like the ones that are probably the most important.
So you can consider the typical pollutants that you would think about. So burning of fossil fuels,
right,
or factories and industrial plants that produce these byproducts just as a matter of of producing whatever it is that they're producing. And so like dioxins is an example of those, the byproducts of burning fossil fuels. Those we find that you can't really avoid. Especially if you live in a city that's, in the midst of all of these industrial plants, or, if you're living further out in rural areas, you're probably less exposed to them. But, living in the U.S., you're probably going to be exposed to them in most places if you live close to a city or in the surrounding areas. But the other big things that we actually can affect, or that we have some control over, are phthalates, like plasticizers. So things that were created to make plastics more pliable, or like parabens.
Like saran wrap and stuff like that?
Yeah, so like plastic saran wrap, plastic water bottles, just plastics in general. A lot of, we're in a time of, convenience. You want things conveniently, and so meal prep, a lot of times things come in like plastic containers, or we store our food in plastic containers.
What does that do though? Like, what is that bad?
It is. I mean, it's the byproducts of these plastics can leach into your food, or in the liquids, water that you drink, or the different liquids that you drink. And so
is it like a Aquafina bottle, and they're not sponsoring us, or is it like even a bottle that's plastic? Like if I buy like for example, I went to Orange Theory, bought a plastic bottle, even that? Yeah,
so you're not only ingesting the water that's in that bottle, but you're also ingesting the microplastics.
With a little health and a little wealth and a lot of love, that's the life that we live. Suits and scrubs.